All right. Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. A good morning to also to those of you on the West Coast. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, also co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. Thanks so much for joining us wherever you're watching from. As you well know, this weekend we do have WonderCon happening, and if you're not familiar with WonderCon, is a show that takes place in Anaheim. If you can call it, I suppose you could say the sister brother show of San Diego Comic Con, features more than 900 plus exhibitors in a 412 square foot exhibit hall that's filled with comics, original art, toys, merchandise, you name it. It also includes exclusive movie and television programming, panels from the top comic professionals, autographs, games, portfolios. As I said, it runs the gamut through, all the various media forms that we have in pop culture. Now, the guest that we have on today, as you can see here, um, is a Cleveland and an Akron-based comic book writer and filmmaker. He is the president of Hero Tomorrow Comics and the creator, writer, letterer of Tap Dance Killer, Punchline, and Vaudevillains Bloom, and the creator, co-writer, colorist, letterer of Apama the Undiscovered Animal. It is my pleasure to welcome onto the show, and this is actually first time, Mr. Ted Sikora. Let me bring him on now. Ted, what's going on, man?
Hey, I'm good, Brandon. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So I guess I'll start first by, it's always fun whenever we're having a guest on at a given show is just to ask, well, first and foremost, I ask, how are things? How has the show been?
It's been terrific. This is a show. I'm doing more shows on the West Coast, and our whole world takes place on the streets of Cleveland. But
Yeah,
it's awesome to see the response. That it does travel well, and we're having I think Friday was like my fifth best ever Friday, and Saturday was somewhere around the 10th. I've done hundreds of shows, so
of
sorry, my
course.
voice is a little roached from 2 days of talking, but yeah, it's been
Well,
great.
sure. Sure, absolutely. And I was gonna say, just to get into just the nitty-gritty of the show in and of itself, you know, you commented on how it had stacked up in prior times that you've not only been to this show, but even other shows. And I have to, ask specifically, what is it about WonderCon? Because just as you said, you've been to other shows and it's you're you reside in the on the West Coast, and that's can be quite a trek going to the West Coast. Say you
For
reside in the
sure.
Midwest, and
Yeah.
making that trip to the West Coast, that can be quite a trek. So, can you talk a bit about like what specifically those components of the show that you enjoy so much that have had you come back? Because I know this isn't your first time at WonderCon.
Well, it kind I did WonderCon back in 2018, and that was really the only other time I did it. And at that time we only had a Palma, so didn't do all that great to be frank about it.
Yeah,
And since then, now we have Tap Dance Killer, we got Punchline, we have Bloom, and I think Apama, is more of a straightforward superhero story, based, or inspired by the Lee Ditko Kirby era. But this other stuff we've added, it's all in the same universe, but I think there's a lot of different kinds of appeal at our booth. So shows in general have been doing much, much better. And we just debuted this new character, Violante the Undead from Mexico. And I was actually at the Latin X Comic and Arts Festival last weekend in Modesto, California, and that's where she kind of debuted. And she went over great. So it's kind of nice that when people come by the booth, I have a lot of different things that may appeal to them from different cultures.
awesome, awesome, awesome. And to speak further on that, you must be psychic because I feel like that's a great segue in just talking about Hero Tomorrow overall. So if you will, if you wanted to shed further light into that universe and all of those characters.
Yeah, I'll do a little flip around here.
Okay.
And so, yeah, this is the Apama book. That's where it started. This one's about a Hungarian ice cream truck driver on the west side of Cleveland who unlocks the spirit force of the most savage beast mankind has never known. And that's this creature right here, the Apama. And he becomes Cleveland's ragtag resident superhero. It was actually in issue 5 of Apama that we introduced his nemesis. And her name is Regina. She's like this hippie, trippy, psychedelic cult leader. Oh, get my camera there right. And then in issues 10 and 11, we introduced Nikki St. Clair, mega talented actor who gets cast in a horror show musical. A supernatural event locks her mentally in the role, and she starts wiping out the mafia. Images of Nikki were being liked and shared by the thousands on social media by people who didn't even know she was. So we gave her her own series, and that became our bestseller. In this book, we introduced a heavyweight boxer who becomes this superpowered murderous clown named Punchline. And now he's in his own series, and it is within Punchline that we just debuted Violante, uh, watching the glare here, Violante the Undead. And inspired by a trip my family took to Mexico. I was very, intrigued by all the Day of the Dead imagery, but I wanted to be careful not to just kind of copy what I thought others had done. And yeah, she's been a big hit at her first 2 shows. I can say that.
Awesome, awesome. And one thing that I wanted to get into too, because you actually it is discussed in I believe it's on your website for Hero Tomorrow, is just that idea of so oftentimes when folks are discovering a gimmick given comic and there's already established history. I think it's you that made that comment even on your website of sometimes it can be daunting to go through years and years of lore of a given character, and that's not the case here. So can you talk a bit about that and how there is a freedom in being able to not have that that baggage of dealing with that, because a lot of times you'll have writers take over, you'll have different parties take over a given character, and they still have to kind of deal with what's come before, even if they put their own stamp on it.
Well, it's you really nailed it. I think, and I've collected Spider-Man my whole life.
Yeah.
I still get it, but it is frustrating when you see a character you like that you feel like they're developing something, and a new writer comes on and they have a whole different mode of what they want to do, and everybody kind of has to pass the character off right where they left them. Um, with indies, you're getting one shared vision, and it sustains for as long as we work on it. So like Violante, the seed of Violante was dropped back in Tap Dance Killer 4. That was like 5, 6 years ago. I knew we were building to this, and yeah, I mean, I used to aspire to write Spider-Man. Like I thought that would have been the greatest thing in the world. But now it's like, what can you do with that character that's really going to have an impact, And I kind of scratch my head. It'll just get retconned by the next writer, And I just I wouldn't trade what we're doing for anything right now. I think we've kind of hit a different stride, and we've been getting interest for other kinds of things too. So we're just going to keep going, and I love doing it, and making great comics is what it's all about.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to talk in general about, because I always find this fascinating too, and I'm sure many of the folks that we have listening, whether they're listening now or after the fact, is a peek behind the curtain of what a lot of our guests have to kind of contend with and deal with. So one common question that we ask oftentimes is just that idea of what is your con kit, so to speak. Like, what is your survival kit as someone who has a table? Everyone
Yeah.
has, I'm sure, different lists, or there may be some cross pollination maybe from other guests that have been on here of similar things.
Okay, so how to successfully do a con is sort of the question, or
Well, I would say more so, for you, because I mean, it's going to look different, of course, right? If you're attending the convention or just an attendee, it's going to look different. If you're going
yeah.
as a guest for a given like movie or television property, but having a table and showing your what you have there in terms of your comics. what does that look like, and making sure that you have what you need.
Yeah, this is these ones where well, most of the shows I drive to, so I can do a much bigger display, and we can get much higher. And but when I do these, like airplane shows, uh, Southwest, just give them a real nice plug. They allow two free
I
check
do Southwest
bags,
too. I'm
and
not I'm not a spokesperson, but I would say Southwest too. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no, two free check bags, a
Yes,
carry on that you can put a short box in a carry on, and and then I ship books to friends, other boxes of, like however many I think I might sell. And so friends who are also attending the show. And shout out to Charlie Stickney of White Ash, who had some cases of tap dance killer that helped me out. And, yeah, just I think fabric banners, they travel light, and just clips, I'm clipped onto the pipe and drape that they supply with the booth here. So a lot of this whole setup, you know, it kind of fits in a couple suitcases, and aside from the books. So yeah, and then it's really, you can get the stuff here, but it's also a mentality. You got to be ready to talk to people, and you can't be, I'm sure everybody says it, but I go by booths all the time, and people are just kind of standing on their, looking at their phone or talking to each other behind the booth, a couple people, and they're not really engaging with
interact.
the people walking by, and you're not going to sell anything, and uh, that's, unless you're established, yeah, you can do that, but you gotta pay your dues. You gotta pedal.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking, more on that, because I'm glad you got into that idea of a car show, as you said, and a plane show of something that is, it's going to take a little more time to get to versus something that you can conveniently get to with your vehicle. Is is there any type of, going more into those plane shows, uh a hard tracking of like what is really, folks are really responding to, in order to determine, okay, I'm just going to bring these specific things because trend wise, this is what's trending in terms of my assortment of, or my assortment of content of what I have. Maybe in this year, this, just as you were talking about with one of the, with one of the characters, is they're really responding to this, so I'm going to bring more of this because I only can bring but so much, versus maybe this other character.
Yeah, I mean, ideally we'd sell out of everything, but at the end of the show, what you've sold, and there are trends. And this was a last week and this week were new because we had a new character, and last week especially was all about Violante. But
Yes.
this week I've been trying to. And I every time we come out with a new book, I stumble through my pitch for the first hour because it's different, and I can do the tap dance killer pitch in 30 seconds all day long. But now trying to explain how it has the seed for this new character, and that new character is a spin-off in a spin-off book of tap dance killer, and how that
Right.
all comes, it's a little complex. So I to answer your question, I've got a sheet that basically I write down what I sold at each show. So next time I go to
I was
San
going to say,
Diego,
yeah, tracking that, really tracking that.
yeah, I'll keep track of how many tap dance killers I sold, how many blooms, the Palmas, punchline, and you make a guess. And if you sell out of something, that's not the worst thing. It's great. But like if you sell out too early, for instance, um, that can be okay because you can generate more interest because it's sold out.
Yeah, true, true, true. So, in one other component that you have in your toolbox, so to speak, is being a filmmaker as well. So, in speaking to that, and what you have done with the universe so far in using that skill set, um, what does that also look like in terms of being able to show that component of your skill set as well, of content that you have?
Yeah. Well, a lot of the reason I'm doing these shows on the West Coast is to have meetings and introduce the properties as IP. I mean, to people who are in the film industry, because yeah, that was where this all started. We made a for anyone who doesn't know, we made a independent feature film about a guy who has an idea for a superhero. He can't get it published, but his girlfriend makes him a costume of his own character for Halloween, and he
Right.
starts running around in it trying to fight crime. This movie's called Hero Tomorrow. And then we did the book that was in the main character's head, which was a Pama, but it's
Right.
not an adaptation of the movie. So yeah, film has always kind of been right there. And like I've got a TV pitch deck that incorporates the whole series, but we also have a screenplay of Bloom that we're shopping around. And yeah, so I think there's just a lot of ways that I've found as soon as we went into comics, the two disciplines just borrow from each other all the time. With
Absolutely.
storyboarding and for the
In the
film.
cinematic nature, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. And this is always fun too. In speaking with all of the guests is outside of your commitments, of course. Obviously you wouldn't be doing what you're doing if you weren't also a fan of a lot of this stuff as well. And I know you were commenting on Spider-Man earlier. So can you talk a bit about also being able to feed that inner fan of yourself for yourself, and going to a lot of these shows and trying to balance that with, the commitments that you have at a show?
Oh yeah. I used to when the MCU was really popping or beginning. I was filling out my collection because I kind of had a guess about what was going to be hot. All these books before the big speculation market hit. It got to a point though where I was just like, I really got to make a decision. Am I here for my collection or am I here to sell my book? And
Right.
I ultimately, it's gotten a lot better now that I just focus on our stuff and creating the best experience for people who come to our booth versus me. Because I do go to so many shows a year, and after a while, you've seen you've seen it, and you don't really have to keep walking the entire floor. I love seeing my friends, all the artists who have their booths, but I'm not really actively shopping as much as I used to.
Gotcha, gotcha. And even when if in regards to like some of the other things that are available in terms of like the programming and things like that, like you've kind of like shut it out at this point.
Oh, well, if I'm in a panel or something, yeah, no, but I don't go to the panels. I really because usually these shows again to keep the costs down, I'm doing them by myself. So
Mm.
if I go to a panel, and it takes an hour,
That's an
that's
hour out
probably
of your day.
that yeah, $100 or more, on out of my pocket to go to that panel. Would I pay $100 to go to that panel? Probably not.
So yeah, no, I'm glad you brought that up because I know like in prior shows, people, and going back to the idea of the con kit, a lot of folks have said it's been really helpful to have someone come, like to have an assistant come or to have their significant other come because,
Yeah.
that allows them to kind of multitask and be in more than one place and step away from their table if need be if they do want to go to something. But yeah, I'm sure it's completely different if you are, a one man show going there and doing everything. Everything is, is has to have intention and has to have purpose in order for it to mean anything or count. So
Yeah, and at the Cleveland shows, which we do so well at the Cleveland shows because this universe takes place in Cleveland, and I do
yeah,
have help at those. But it would really, it would be kind of cost prohibitive, I think, to bring somebody along, because then it's all the travel, the room, another airline ticket or all that. And my family did come with me to San Diego a couple of years ago, and that was great. But there at that show, I only had a 6 foot table, so there was no room behind the table. So eventually, we'll get it all figured out and have a great family experience at a show, I suppose, where we can all kind of hang out behind the booth. But for now, they get enough of it at home. Let me put it that way too, because my daughter, she's 16. She does a lot of the she's really the assistant editor, so she's the first one who reads the stuff, and she's real enthusiastic about it. And at the same time, you know, I want to give them their space to with the comic stuff. It's we have just the right amount, I think, and there's a nice balance, and that's important too.
Cool, awesome. Well, I won't keep you too much longer, Tid. Before I let you go, can you, talk about the upcoming slate? Perhaps with what's going on, continue what's coming up, or maybe things that you can tease that are coming with Hero tomorrow, and then even with some upcoming shows.
Well, yeah, we'll be in Fan Expo Cleveland's next. I'll be at C2E2, New York Comic Con, San Diego. In terms of what's next, more issues of Punchline. Issue 3 just came out, and that again is the one where I'll flip around here, Violante. So, and we sell these on our website, which, that's herotomorrow.com. And, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, we're also still, as I said, let me flip back around. I've been working on another musical, which is not really
Okay.
related. So this all started with a musical. I wrote a dark comedy musical horror show, and Tap Dance Killer was one of the songs. This was back in the '90s, but then had the idea to bring the characters to life in our Apama book. So, even a new cast album with of that character of that whole show, and we do have a new version of the song already with Coco Smith, who's a Broadway performer doing Tap Dance Killer. And if anybody reaches out to me on social media, I'll send them the song for free.
All right, cool. Awesome beans. So there you guys have it. Again, I want to thank Ted Sikora for coming on and talking about, what he has going with Hero tomorrow over at WonderCon 2024. Um, Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm your host, Brandon Choi, host and co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. You can find me on X at Brandon Choi underscore Ian, well, Brandon Choi ENT, let me say that. And then on IG, Brandon Choi underscore ENT. Thank you guys so much for watching. Be safe out there, and see you soon, guys. Bye
Thank you.
now.